In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the bulbs that you should be planting in late August and September to have beautiful flowers in your spring garden. And if you've never been here before, my name is Marlene. Welcome to my home and garden channel. Now let's get to planting. Just before we do though, guys, I wanted to show you the plants that you would not be putting the bulbs down in August and September. And that would be like your daffodils right here. Daffodils, they are true bulbs and they actually don't need to establish any roots until in the spring. So they actually like the cold, as do the tulips right here. They like the cold in the ground to start off. So typically you plant those in October and even November in some cases, like in my area in zone 8, that's when you plant our tulips out. And it is perfect for them. They're quite content to sit in the soil for all of those weeks of fall and winter. And then when the spring comes around, that's when they start to develop roots, when you start to thaw out, and then they come up, give you leaves and then your flowers, and you get to enjoy that beautiful show. But now let's go ahead and take a look at the ones that we can plant in August and September. The first one would be bearded iris. And if you have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I absolutely love bearded iris. They are large, they are beautiful, they make a great statement in your spring garden. They grow in growing zones 6 to 9, and they come back year after year and they multiply. Leaves are beautiful and the flowers are beautiful as well. And this is what their root system looks like. So it's not really a true bulb. It's called a rhizome. The swollen part right there is actually a swollen stem that looks like a root. And the little smaller ones are the true roots under there. The rhizome is kind of like these right here, like the ginger root that you're looking at. They're fleshy and they store the food in there for your plant. And that is what nourishes them. And that's pretty much how you start out when you're planting them, by putting that part, in the soil. So basically what you do is you want to get some well-drained soil and, fairly good quality soil as well. And you just go ahead and rest them on it and make sure that you cover the true roots down there. And you can cover the rhizomes a little bit, not a lot. Now, these are some ones that I was dividing out. And just to say that if the soil in your area is not very good, you can always go in and add some granular fertilizer like these right here. And what I'll do is I'll link this in the description box below. So if you wanted to get any of those, you can go ahead and grab them from Amazon. So basically, once you have covered the true roots under there, you can go in, and I cut this part off because I was dividing them and it was a little bit extra long, so I took that off. But once you're buying them, you just basically get each part that you have in your package that you got and just plant them the way I did right here. And again, you can cover them very lightly, the rhizomes, with some of the soil, but just not too much because they can get, rot under there. And you don't want that to happen. Once you have planted them in, I put these a little bit closer, but you basically want to start off by putting them maybe about 12 to sometimes even up to 18 inches apart in the soil, because they do spread out over time. If you're doing them in a container, make sure it's large. You can put maybe like 1 or 2, depending on how big it is. Now, the first spring that comes up, you're going to have a few blooms like I have here. This was the first year after I had divided mine. You can see that I did get some. It's going to be the same thing when you're planting a very new one for the first time. Not a lot, but as time goes by, guys, they are going to multiply. They're going to be so gorgeous like these that I have here. And they're such a, so eye-catching, and people always, talk about them and say how beautiful they are. And of course, they come in many different colors that you could choose from. This just happens to be the one that I chose. And if you wanted to get some online on Amazon, I'll link these in the description box for you. You can go on there and check it out and see if that will work for you or not. Next, we come to their cousin, which would be Dutch iris. And my name for these, I call them little cutie because they're just so small and so cute. They're just like a smaller version of the bearded iris. And I think that they're just as beautiful, and they're good for cut flowers. They don't last too long inside, but you can always, just enjoy them outside if you prefer for them to last a little bit longer. And you can see how beautiful these are growing in the wind. They also grow in growing zones 6 to 9. So if you're in that area, definitely try to enjoy some of these. And they do spread out quite a bit. So they're not invasive, but they do spread. So bear that in mind. You can maybe could put them in a container if you like. And this is what their root system looks like, the rhizome situation there again. And I'm putting these in some pots just to show you, where you're going to go ahead and make sure you have, good fertile soil that's well draining. And you just go ahead and make a little well in the center, and then you can place them in there. And in this case, you want to make sure that the little leaf parts are not coming up above the soil. Now, of course, we're putting bulbs here. If you wanted to start them from seeds, you can. Those are more easily available. However, you're going to have to wait a couple years before they mature enough and give you flowers. So if you wanted to get faster results, it's better to get the bulbs than to get, I should say, the rhizomes, which is truly what they are, but they call them bulbs anyway. But you'd want to get that part instead of getting the seeds to speed up the whole process. So if you plant them in the fall, then the spring of the next year, then you should get blooms. And like I said, they do spread a lot. So if you wanted to try, you could just put them in maybe containers, like some larger ones, and just enjoy them that way. And of course, as time goes by, you'll have to divide them. But the upcoming video will, go into all of that information in another season. And I'll link these below if you wanted to get some of these online, so you can have those beauties for your spring garden. Next, we come on to lilies. And of course, there's so many different types of lilies. These are some that were sold already in bloom in the spring. And of course, you can definitely get them this way if you want to at springtime. But if you get them in the fall, as the bulbs, then you save money. You get to enjoy them for a lot longer because you see when they come up, and you can see when they start to bloom, and the flowers, you have them for the entire blooming season or period that each flower lasts for. And of course, there are different times. Like I said, this one here is an Asiatic lily that I have in my garden. And I think that this color is just so striking and so beautiful. You can see it's right next to my roses. And I'm going to get to showing you how to plant them in just a second. But just to show you that, they match so well with so many things in your garden. And me personally, I like to have something blooming, every season. Even in the winter, I'll have pansies outside blooming. So there's always something that gives a little pop of color into my garden. So definitely worth considering, guys, whether it's Asiatic or Oriental, or even the Easter ones, which we'll look at in just a second. And just to say that if you do like gardening tips, my gardening tours, and topics, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell twice so you never miss an upload. So over here now we have some lily bulbs. As you can see them right here, we have a few roots at the bottom, and you can see how it is shaped. And basically, we're going to go ahead and get them planted. Now, if you like, you can put them in your flower beds, of course, like I did in mine. But you can put them in containers, like I'm going to show you right here as well. If you are going to be using a container, you would like a size like this one right here. This is like a 1-gallon container. You'd want to make sure that you're putting just one in there. And I like to make sure that I put a filter, coffee filter in the bottom, so that way it does control the flow of the soil, it does control the flow of the water, and it just makes it better for the plant. And of course, you can get whatever potting mix you like. This just happens to be the one that I was using. And they're fairly, have a fair amount of nutrients in them, but you can still sprinkle some, of the fertilizer in there if you like. At this point, I'm not going to use the mulch, and we'll talk about it in just a further part of the video. But let's go ahead and get started with our planting. So typically you'd want to allow, I'd say, about 4 inches above where you level the soil out, because you need to have that height above it. And then we're just going to go ahead and place the lily bulb in. And of course, you want to make sure the pointy side is pointing up, because that's where the leaves are going to come from. And the roots, of course, go down to the soil. So those will be at the bottom. And then once you have done that, you just go ahead and fill it in, with your soil, like I'm doing here. And that pretty much takes care of it. And I just also wanted to say that if you did want to get some of these, there's some beautiful ones. You can check them out in the description box, and I'll link them below for you there. And you'll, can get whatever you like, and just take a look around and see what other ones they have available for you there. And of course, I have a beautiful Easter lilies in my garden, which actually bloom in June. And they're so pretty. And these, you can plant them at the same time as well, or you can plant them in the spring, but they'll bloom the following year. Now, we did talk about mulch earlier, just to say that typically, like for your iris and, the bearded and the Dutch, you don't necessarily have to mulch them when you just planted them. You can do so when it gets very cold, maybe like an inch or so, but clear them off when the spring comes around, because mulching is not too good for them. The lilies, you can keep it there. So, we're so looking forward to this season of fall and just get these in the ground before it gets too cold so that way you know that they'll be fine. And be sure to check out the my Iris playlist that I'm going to link at the end for you. It tells you all the ins and outs, how to separate them, how to make sure that they bloom and all of that. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a happy gardening time, and I do hope to see you in the next video. Take care.